It's time, Cougar Nation. Cougar Tracks. The best season analysis with BYU insider Mitch Harper on KSL News Radio and on video every day on the YouTube page for KSL Sports.
Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL News Radio, your legacy home of the Cougars. I am your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. It's a Wednesday edition of the show on Rivalry Week. And one thing that's key in BYU versus Utah games is turnovers. And that's our top story of the day.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
It's not a coincidence that BYU has won its last two games against Utah by simply not turning the ball over. BYU is +5 in turnovers against Utah in the last two rivalry games, and no surprise, BYU is 2-0 in its last two matchups against the Utes. Saturday, BYU will look to maintain a clean sheet without any turnovers against the Utes. Saturday night, 6 p.m., extended pregame coverage begins at noon right here on KSL News Radio. And the turnovers become a topic because the last two games, BYU has lost the turnover margin. BYU, through the first four games, had a clean sheet, no turnovers. Bear Bachmeier was perfect in that regard, but the Arizona game with a much more challenging defense, that 3-3-5 scheme that Arizona implemented against Bear, caused two picks. Aaron Roderick knows that turnovers are magnified in the rivalry game against you.
Super important, you're right, because a week ago I was standing here saying, we're not going to freak out about that yet, but 2 games in a row, that's a problem, and so we have to nip that in the bud now. Turnover margin will probably be probably be the deciding factor in this game. You know, it'll be, if not the deciding factor, it'll be up there. It's super important in every game. We have to take care of the football, and I'm sure they're trying to do the same thing, and both defenses are trying to get takeaways, and that's the name of the game.
It really is the name of the game in BYU versus Utah games, especially since 2005 when Kyle Whittingham took over as the head coach of the Utes. You think back to some of the games in this series in the last 20 years. 2 pick sixes for BYU in 2019. That's the one game that I point to in the Kalani Sitake era that BYU was probably not competitive in. Utah was really good that season, but 2 pick sixes in a game that was 30-12. You take those 2 pick sixes away, it's suddenly 16-12 and has a completely different light. 2018, remember, BYU was up 20-0. Then Zach Wilson throws a pick six. It's 20-7. You're thinking, oh no, here it goes. Utah's going to storm back. Then BYU responds with a touchdown drive, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, BYU's going to pull this off. It's 27-7. And then Utah stormed back with Jason Shelley and Armand Shine. That's one of the missed games of the rivalry, BYU losing in 2018. But I do believe that pick six settled Utah in. Without that pick six, I think BYU wins that game. 2016, BYU had a pick six on the opening offensive play of the game. And then, of course, the year prior in the Las Vegas Bowl, just 9 months earlier, BYU had 2 pick sixes amidst a start where Utah goes off to a 35-0 lead early against BYU. 2011, there was 7 turnovers. 2008, there were 5 picks. I could go on and on. The games that BYU wins against Utah, they're taking care of the football, and Bear Bachmeier has to be excellent taking care of the ball. It's a zero deal, like no exceptions. You've got to take care of the football. Now, I think part of that Arizona pick, there was a high snap from Bruce Mitchell, and Bear then improvises and tries to make a play. And I can see from when you look at that All-22 replay, it did look like for a moment Carson Ryan was open in that Arizona game, but the closing speed of the Arizona defender made a great play. Still, Bears got to take care of the football. I think it's always important in every game, but in this one, the pick sixes, the scoop and scores, the fumbles, they just get amplified in this game, and they take on a greater intensity, and the emotions are definitely higher in a game like this one. And Aaron Roderick talked about how the mindset he wants Bear to have going into this rivalry game as as a player who really didn't know much about this BYU-Utah rivalry as a guy that grew up in California?
Well, it's not just another game, so you can't do that. But you have to, you have to play the position with poise, and you have to prepare the same way you do every week. And I think a big part of this game is controlling your emotions and just staying within the system at quarterback. You got to stay within the system and be ready to execute against a really good defense.
BYU is 29th nationally in turnover margin this season, one of the best in college football, nearing the top 25. Utah, on the other hand, is tied for 56th. They've been, at times have given up the football, but BYU has got to generate some takeaways, and BYU's defense has been really good at that. They've had, games where they're always, it seems like every week they find a way to get at least one interception, and I think that's something they got to be able to generate against Devin Dampier and force some interceptions for Dampier. Remember last year at New Mexico, Dampier had a lot of turnovers, made a lot of plays, but he didn't have the supporting cast like he does at Utah. I still think Utah's receivers are not as great, and that's been kind of a theme for Utah, really, since they've been in the Pac-12. They've never had great receivers. I honestly look at Utah's receivers. Their best ones were probably in the Urban Meyer years, Paris Warren, Steve Savoy. I think their receiver talent has just been average since they've been a power conference team. That's my personal opinion. So I think BYU can have some opportunities potentially to generate some takeaways, because if they do, that would be huge in this game, because you got the home crowd on your side. This notion that Utah's going to have 60-40, I heard that on a social media clip, some clip farming. I'm like, 60-40, folks. It's a sold-out game, but it's going to primarily be BYU fans, 90-10 BYU to Utah fans. Utah always has a presence, and they'll have that northwest corner, of course, and there'll be smattering of Ute fans throughout the stands, I'm sure, on the secondary market, but it's primarily going to be a BYU crowd. It's going to be very friendly for the Cougs in this game, and the intensity, though, will be off the charts, and Aaron Roderick even compared the intensity of this rivalry game to that of a grand stage in the NBA.
It's a tricky thing where both of us know each other so well. It's sort of like I compare it to like a game 7 of an NBA playoff series, where you've just you know each other so well that last game is just we know that they know that we know that they know. It's one of those kind of things. It's you can outsmart yourself sometimes, and the players just have to go out and make plays and execute.
They really do know everything about each other. That's what, to me, makes this game so close pretty much every year. Last year, BYU's flying high, undefeated. Utah's in the dumps, yet it ends up being a 22-21 game, and Utah's Brandon Rose at quarterback. How does that happen? Again, there's just so much familiarity. They can almost lift the hood, and they know everything of the way these individuals tick. Witt knows Kalani. Kalani knows Witt. Coach Buhog, Aaron Roderick, Jay Hill, Jason Beck, they all know each other. They all know everything about each other. And they just know the way that they go about this week. They know everything about the approach, everything. So it makes for, naturally, a close game. And then you have the players who know each other quite well. And you'll hear coming up in this show, Parker Kingston, who knows guys like Smith Snowden on the opposite side for the Utes. So let's take a break. It's Cougar Tracks on this Rivalry Wednesday here on the show. And Cougar Tracks is loaded for you, and it's always powered by KSLSports.com. We'll get back to some BYU football talk a little bit later here in the show, but wanted to touch on some BYU basketball here on Cougar Tracks, which you can always get on the KSL Sports YouTube page every day at noon Mountain Time here on KSL Sports and KSLSports.com, the KSL Sports app, and the KSL Sports YouTube page, and the audio podcast platforms as well, wherever you get your podcasts. So yesterday it was announced by the Big 12, the basketball TV schedule. How about this? Long gone are the days of BYU basketball just residing on ESPN Plus. Remember 2 years ago, Mark Pope's last season with the program, first year in the Big 12 Conference, BYU was primarily the ESPN Plus team. Low expectations going into the Big 12. No one expected anything of them. So they never got any linear television games, even the big win at Kansas. And Kansas is always on things like Big Monday. That game was on ESPN Plus. Oh, how the times have changed. 2 years have flown by, and BYU basketball is a television darling. So you look through the schedule, every game, it just kind of blows me away too, because as someone who grew up listening to BYU basketball, where even in the years with Jimmer Fredette, there were games that were not on TV. This kind of blows me away to see this level of coverage from a television standpoint for BYU basketball. Again, Jimmer's senior year, I think it was the first game of the season against Fresno State. There was no TV. And that was just, 14, 15 years ago. I know the TV landscape has changed significantly for college sports, but these are good times for BYU basketball when it comes to TV exposure. So Villanova game, we know that's going to be on TNT, True TV, HBO Max to tip it off November 3rd in Las Vegas. Cannot wait for that one. You've got some ESPN Plus games in the non-conference with the games like Holy Cross, things like that. But you got CBS Sports Network for Delaware on November 11th, Network Fox at 5 p.m. prime time, 7 p.m. Eastern, BYU versus UConn in Boston. I wish I could go to this game. Gosh, I wish I could go to this one because this is going to be such a good game. I was hoping this would be a weeknight game because then could have possibly gone to this one and then hit up BYU versus TCU for football. But football takes priority on that day. And Cougs and the Huskies are going to be an amazing game. That's Network Fox, 5 p.m. I hope there's no conflict between basketball and football that day. Big 12 schedule makers, please do not create any conflict for Cougar fans so they can enjoy a full day of coverage of BYU sports on November 15th. November 21st, BYU is going to play Wisconsin on Peacock, 2 p.m. in the Delta Center. Love that. I think Peacock is really good. Now, that's a streaming service like an ESPN Plus, but much higher level. Peacock is really good, and their broadcasts are excellent, I think, for basketball. And Peacock is new to the Big 12 media landscape this year. When I talked to Brian Thornton, the vice president of basketball at the Big 12, I spoke with him at the spring meetings down in Orlando last May, and he told me that NBC and Peacock joined the mix. So that's pretty significant, all the different television partners that the Big 12 has. And that's pretty exciting because if they form strong relationships, when they hit the market come January 2030, you'd like to think that all these media partners are going to try to get the Big 12 and drive up the number and the media rights dollars for the league going forward when 2031 hits for the conference. Then they go to Orlando, Terry Chocolate ESPN Events Invitational, ESPN. BYU basketball historically has always been the ESPN2, ESPNU, ESPN News. Not common to get ESPN games. Thanksgiving night, ESPN. Cannot wait for that one. That will be awesome against Miami. Jimmy V Classic against Clemson, Tuesday, December 9th, ESPN. We knew about that one. Now the Big 12. Big 12 opener on the road at Kansas State, 11:30 a.m., January 3rd on CBS. Network CBS. CBS only has select games that they pick from in the Big 12. And they chose that one to see A.J. DeBonsa's first Big 12 basketball game in action at Kansas State. More Peacock. You've got ESPN for BYU and Utah. ESPN or ESPN2 for Texas Tech in Lubbock, Fox for BYU and Utah on Saturday, January 24th in Provo. Of note, 3:30 p.m. game there. And then you got the turnaround to Arizona on Big Monday. So they did give BYU an afternoon tip, which was pretty good because, again, no Sunday action for the Cougars. Quick turnaround then for the Wildcats on Monday. BYU and Kansas, ESPN, Saturday, January 31st. How on earth did the Big 12 not schedule these two teams twice? DeBonsa and Darren Peterson. And we're going to see both those guys next week at Big 12 Basketball Media Days in Kansas City. I'll be there in KC covering all the action. But how on earth did you not have BYU, Kansas twice? I know everyone wants to play Kansas twice. I get it. But Come on, DeBonsa, Darren Peterson. If there was ever a year to schedule BYU and Kansas twice, this was the year. Totally dropped the ball there, Big 12. FS1, ESPN, Baylor, Tuesday, February 10th, ESPN or ESPN2. Arizona, ESPN, Iowa State, ESPN. UCF could be ESPN or ESPN2. BYU could play a game against UCF and be on ESPN. That's how much exposure this team's going to get. Fox for West Virginia, ESPN or ESPN2 for Cincinnati, and then the night or the regular season finale, Senior Day, March 7th, my birthday, ESPN, BYU, and Texas Tech. Electric schedule. Cannot wait for Cougar Hoops, and so excited for Cougar Hoops that I even caught up with a Nebraska insider to get an insider look at the Cornhuskers as BYU gets ready to take on Nebraska this Saturday in Lincoln for an exhibition game. This is my conversation with a Nebraska insider to get to know the Cornhuskers and the expectations for this exhibition right here on Cougar Tracks. BYU basketball season, the most anticipated season in program history, is about to begin. Exhibition action coming up this Saturday as BYU takes on the Nebraska Cornhuskers in Lincoln. It's the first of a home-and-home series between the two programs in exhibition play. Wish it could be regular season, but we'll take exhibition nonetheless. And to get a insider look at the Nebraska Cornhuskers, he's a busy guy. He's got Nebraska football, who's riding high in the top 25, and then Nebraska ball as well. Ben Beecham from the Daily Nebraskan and Husker Online. Ben, appreciate you hopping on board. And I know it's busy time of the year, so I appreciate a few minutes. What's kind of the expectations of Nebraska basketball this year after, being one of the few teams in college basketball a season ago that actually ended their season on a win?
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me. Great to be here. Yeah, this team, there's a lot of questions sort of heading into it. Right now, they probably have around 11 to 12 guys that could make an impact on the roster. I think that the exhibition for them is really going to be mostly about trying to maybe find who those guys are. They return a lot of veteran leadership. Rank Mass is the big name to watch out for. He was out for all of last year, but he was a big contributor on that 2023-24 tournament team starting center. They bring back Jamarcus Lawrence, who left for a year to go to Rhode Island, but has come back to Nebraska. He will probably slot in at that starting point guard spot. There's a lot of leadership, and I think the main thing about this team is that they can really shoot. They have top to bottom shooters. I think one of the main things Fred Hoiberg has honed in on is getting those shooters. Every guy in that lineup is going to be able to stretch the floor, although they might not all play out on the perimeter. Guys like Connor Essegian and Price Sanford are going to be able to they're kind of like microwaves. They can really turn up at any moment.
Kevin Young, BYU basketball head coach, said that he spoke with Fred Hoiberg a little bit to try to figure out how to construct this exhibition because it's not obviously a typical game. It's not going to count in the standings. And as you noted, Coach Hoiberg's probably going to be looking at a lot of different personnel. What are some other objectives you think for Nebraska that they're trying to figure out in this exhibition against a BYU team that is perceived in the preseason as a top 10 team?
I think one of the main questions Fred Hoiberg's had for this team is how are they going to hold up defensively? So I think seeing a team led by Kevin Young, who has NBA coaching experience, and looking at BYU's starting lineup top to bottom, huge names. I mean, obviously AJ DeBansa, that's the big name that everyone's looking out for. But guys like Richie Saunders and Kennard Davis are maybe as good as players you're going to get against early in the season. BYU might be the best team they see until Purdue in February. So I really think just seeing how this team can hold up defensively against that sort of top 10, maybe even top 5 level talent is what Fred Hoiberg wants to see.
Along those lines, can't talk with Ben Beecham here. Daily Nebraskan, Husker Online does a lot of different stuff on Nebraska coverage. How does the Big Ten stack up? And I ask that because, BYU in the Big 12. The Big 12 typically prides itself on being the toughest basketball league in America. Last year, that title went to the SEC. Big 12 should be pretty deep. What's kind of the outlook for the Big 10, and where do you think Nebraska sits in that mix heading into the year?
It's Purdue at the top, but you have teams like Michigan, UCLA, who really added a lot of great players. Michigan added Yaxel Lendeborg. UCLA added Donovan Dent. They invested a lot into those rosters. So they'll kind of make a run at it, but Purdue bringing back Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Wren is huge. They're going to be one of the best teams in the country, obviously. But even going down the line, you have teams like Washington, USC, Oregon, Indiana that have really loaded up their rosters. Indiana bring in DeVries from Drake. It's just, or West Virginia, excuse me. They just have a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent. And I think Nebraska might be one of the few rosters in the Big Ten that didn't get significantly better, which is my main concern for the team. Now that all teams can make the Big Ten tournament, there's obviously no concern about them not making it. But if they only had 14, I think it'd be another season where you're concerned about them squeaking into that Big Ten tournament.
Do you think this is the year that Nebraska can get an NCAA tournament win?
I feel like the media gets asked that every single year heading into Nebraska basketball year, but I think there is a path for them to do that. I think they would. I think a lot of things would have to go well. I think they'd really have to find a solid, true point guard. I think all of their transfers would have to pan out. I think they would have to be as consistent shooting as they could be. I think they would have to find things defensively. I think they just kind of have to kind of settle in. I think they have the veteran leadership to do it, but obviously they are also replacing their two best players, Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary, who they averaged 35 points per game. Juwan Gary was their defensive anchor. I think if Fred Hoiberg can find a solid identity for this team, they could do it, especially when you're in the Big Ten and you're facing some great teams all year.
Last couple of moments here with Ben Beecham, a daily Nebraskan, excuse me. What do you think the atmosphere is going to be like on Saturday? Tip-off, noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain Time. Seems like ticket sales are going pretty good. What do you think that atmosphere is going to be like on a Saturday where Nebraska football is already taking care of business with Friday night football? What should we expect on Saturday for the atmosphere?
I think it'll be good, not great. I think obviously it's fall break coming up this weekend for students, so you see a lot of people leaving town. Pinnacle Bank Arena, PBA, it's one of the more underrated venues in the conference. I'll say that. I think some national media would agree with me on that. But there's also a lot of people who focus on football, and there's just not a lot of buzz around this team right now. And especially, it's an earlier exhibition than we're used to at Nebraska. So I think they're just, with football, big game coming up this week, there's just not a ton of buzz around basketball right now. But I do think when you have a team like BYU coming, I think there's a lot of people who want to see AJ DeBansa playing his first game against another team. I really think maybe there's more buzz than I've been hearing, but I've just not been seeing a lot around here. I feel like the most buzz I've seen is Matt Rule stuff in Penn State. That's been the big stuff this week. Basketball's just been a little bit mum, but I think if they can go out there and put together a solid performance, the hype will start to ramp up for Nebraska.
Definitely excited to see how this Nebraska team gets put together this season. I'll be definitely keeping tabs throughout the year because BYU wants to get a strong barometer going into the year for this exciting season for Cougar Hoops. Ben, appreciate the time. Best of luck going forward, and looking forward to all your coverage, football, basketball for Nebraska with the Daily Nebraskan. And thanks again for giving some insight into the Cornhuskers.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube page and KSL News Radio. BYU wide receiver Parker Kingston is playing the best football of his BYU career, and he's getting ready to take on the Utes for the second time in his BYU career. I caught up with Parker this week at practice, see how he's doing in his mindset heading into this matchup against the Utes.
It's BYU football game week, and it's not just any week, it's rivalry week, and joining me now is local in-state product, Roy High School, Parker Kingston, who had a big game last week against Arizona. Parker, I'm curious, after a big game like that, maybe it could be easy to bask in the glory of that win and that personal experience, but how quickly did you turn the page to Utah?
Yeah, as soon as the game was over, it's a new week, right? As soon as we get home, no one cares about what I did in Arizona. It's a new week. I got to keep grinding. I got to keep on my plays and keep getting better so I can keep stacking those games on top of each other.
How was that the same attitude from the rest of the team that you've seen so far after that Arizona game? Just get after it to Utah?
Yeah, that's how it is after every week. Once the game's over, we're on to the next week, and I've seen it. We came out and we're firing this week. Today, and it was, Tuesdays are rough, especially because we had a late night Sunday, but bodies don't feel the best, but we came out and we had a good practice.
What makes this team so good at being able to be process-oriented, move on, and really just focus in on whoever the opponent is that given week?
Yeah, I think it's just our culture and what we do. We don't like to dwell on the past, and we like looking on the future and what we want to accomplish. And each game is a step into our future and into our accomplishments down the road. And I think we want to take it 1 week at a time. And once that game's over, we're on to the next.
They love you out here, Parker. The West Virginia game, Kalani noted he felt like you were finally back at your full strength health. You agree with that sentiment, and how you feeling health-wise?
Yeah, I finally felt like I was myself again, and I felt like I showed it too. And it's been great to be back to myself. And those first 2 weeks sucked, honestly. Like, I wasn't myself, I wasn't confident, and to be able to get that confidence back in those ECU and Colorado game and then finally break out against West Virginia felt good.
Do you feel like that maybe attributed on punt return, those early games, just some of the miscues early on, to maybe just that lack of confidence with the injury?
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't fully confident in myself, and I was trying to run different and not just have that hammy not be part of my running motion, I guess. So I was swinging the ball a lot, but I shouldn't still make those mistakes even if I am injured, but I think that definitely played a role in it.
How confident are you playing now, though? You had a big punt return, too. I think it's kind of getting overlooked in your career day in the receiving game that set up the late game in the fourth quarter. Just how good do you feel now?
Yeah, I feel great. I feel like I'm proving everyone wrong, and I'm proving everybody that I can play receiver. And I'm not just a punt returner. I'm not just a special play guy. So it's been fun. I'm happy that I'm able to be back there returning punts again. Hopefully we can get one soon.
That's a good point. What's kept you in an area where college football is very transactional? It can be easy to move on if you're not getting the volume of snaps that you maybe want in a game. What's kept you always I'm going to stay the course, be here at BYU, and compete?
Yeah, I think it's just your hard work always pays off, and I think everything happens for a reason, right? If you stick the course, and just being able to stay here, and go through all the ups and downs, I think has built me into who I am today, and has helped me become the player I am.
How would you describe your chemistry with Bear right now?
I say it's at an all-time high. Obviously, we didn't get those fall camp reps, and to be able to come back and just grind during practice and get those in-game reps, I think has really helped.
How do you like the spot here now, Rivalry Week? Local guy. What do you remember about growing up, seeing this rivalry? If you watched it at all as a kid, what do you make of this rivalry historically?
Yeah, it's always been a big game, especially as an in-state kid. You'd show up to school in elementary, and everyone's either wearing all red or all blue this week. But it's an awesome game. The nerves are unlike any other game, and but you can't treat it like that. You got to treat it like just another game. You just got to go 1-0 on the week, and I think that's what we're gonna do.
Were you all red or all blue as a kid?
I was actually neither. So I was all Boise State blue. So I could care less about the rivalry, but it was always fun. I would always bait each other, eat them into fighting. So it was always fun.
Now it's Cougar blue, though.
Now it's Cougar blue. Yeah.
The emotions are high in this one, as you noted. I think last year was your first experience in the rivalry, if I'm not mistaken, because I remember you committed in the 2021 season in high school. When you came away with that win as a team, what did you make of just the emotions living it last season?
Yeah, it was awesome. Obviously, all the fans are going nuts. When we came back, the whole parking lot over there was filled with students. But it's awesome to put on and win for your community and for your fans, because it's crazy how much our fans hate each other, and but it was a crazy game. It was fun to get that win. We didn't play our best last year, so we're hoping to come out and play our best this year.
Is it hard to tune out those fans, and whether it's classrooms or in the community, is it hard to tune out that noise that the fans do bring to this thing?
Yeah, it's not hard. Honestly, I like looking at it because I think it's just funny. I enjoy looking at Twitter comments and just what people say, because it's what I enjoy doing, because it's funny to see what people say. But no, I don't think it's that hard. It's fun once everyone's rocking. It was rocking at Utah last year, and we got it better atmosphere here, so it's going to be even better.
So much is made for people on the outside, maybe not with the team, that say like, oh, these teams have so much crossover. We see in the coaching staffs. Do you know the players in that secondary at Utah, or players on Utah's team that you were friends with in high school or whatnot?
Yeah, obviously we have a bunch of mutual friends. I'm close with Smith. I was really close with Logan when he was here. John Henry, I knew a lot. So there's a lot of guys over there that we've played against in high school, and it's going to be fun.
Your thoughts on going up against Utah's secondary that includes Smith?
Yeah, they're good. They're talented. We played against them last year. They have one new DB that we didn't play against, but they're solid, and I'm excited to get after them.
Areas of focus this week as we kind of wrap this up, just focuses this week for the offensive side getting ready for this game.
Yeah, just taking care of the ball, obviously, and executing our assignments, making those blocks downfield to spring LJ for the long runs, and just doing what we do and not changing anything, just treating it like another week.
And trying to unhitch the wagon. You don't have any, unhitch the trailer, you don't have any issues with that. Chase maybe is, I know that you're kidding, but trying to break out a big play, how big is that, getting those chunk yardage plays?
Yeah, they're massive. I think this is like the most explosive our offense has been in a while, and we've had massive plays, and I think we're just going to keep continuing to doing that.
And that's BYU wide receiver Parker Kingston. Appreciate Parker for joining me this week after practice. And that's going to do it for this edition of Cougar Tracks. I hope all of you enjoyed it. We'll be back tomorrow with some Big 12 football picks and a whole lot more as BYU versus Utah countdown continues here on Cougar Tracks, and it's powered by KSL Sports and KSL News Radio.